Hey everybody, Alex Terrace here, healthhacksreview.com. So in this video, I'm actually going to review and talk about different near-infrared LED arrays, also known as emitters, or sometimes even elements. And these different ones that I have here are what you currently will find on the market that are being advertised and promoted for healing with musculoskeletal conditions and other things that we've learned from studies over the last many years. Now, again, this is referred to as near-infrared therapy because it has to do with the type of wavelength. And the kind of fancier term is photobiomodulation. You'll see that in the description if you want to Google around and learn about that. I think even Joov Mercola has an article out on photobiomodulation, so you can read about that. Now, the reason I'm touching on this is because a couple of these products are newer to the market, but also if you found this video because you're looking into infrared saunas, and you might see some saunas out there talking about near infrared, then it's important really to watch this video and just know that a lot of the saunas out there are not really necessarily always advertising or educating or explaining the therapeutic benefits of near infrared and the studies out there, and correlating them really with their sauna. So I just want to touch on a few points. If these types of devices and these types of modalities are of your interest, one thing that was really important that I noticed is that nobody right now is really reviewing or researching or testing them. One way that I tested them, and which is how it's actually officially done in the photobiomodulation industry, measuring lasers and LEDs mainly, is actually using what's called a beam meter, and that measures the amount of energy in the 400 to 1100 nanometer spectrum, so near infrared, and it measures the amount of actual joules of energy, and that measurement is in milliwatts per centimeter squared. And centimeters squared of what? Well, on your actual body. So they're actually measuring a little bit of an area and seeing how much energy is going into that area. Reason that's important is because when we look at all the research studies, we actually know that specific types of ways the body responds and specific health benefits that is associated with those measurements. So those are dosage protocols, basically. So here's something really interesting that these different devices, and there's 3 different ones here, by the way. Okay, so that's a separate one, that's unique, and that's unique, different companies. That this is not talked about by a couple of these companies, but as long as we have similar semiconducting diode or LEDs, okay, and we know their specification, we know how strong they are, what is not talked about at all, to my knowledge, which is important, is the lens angle on top of the different devices here. So when we talk about lens angle, that really has to do with how that energy is being focused. So what I found when I'm testing with a beam meter from Thor Labs, and it's a very well-known company, and it's not the only company that makes a beam meter that measures the actual energy of near-infrared, but you can see that, by the way, in the description, and I'll link to that. You can check out the company and the beam meter. But what I found is there's big differences depending on the lens angle. So with this brand here, for example, we're looking at basically a 120 degree lens angle on this, and we're looking at about a 90 degree lens angle, and we're looking at about a 30 degree lens angle on this. Bottom line is, even if I got one of those numbers wrong, they're all different lens angles. And so what I found with these 2 on the outside is that basically if you're right up close to this, and let's say your body is like literally hugging it like this, which most people don't really use it that way per se, if they're standing maybe commonly this kind of distance away, or even in a sauna, if you're a distance away from it. Bottom line is if you're up close to it, all of these actually emit a very similar amount of energy if you're right up flush against it. So we're pretty good there in terms of milliwatts per centimeter squared. But when we start to come away, just even a few inches, maybe 4 to 6 inches, we see a tremendous drop off that I've basically been measuring with that meter. And many people commonly stand here, but they're getting significantly less amount of joules of energy when you're at that distance. So the only one that I've found so far that doesn't really drop off so significantly is this one in the center. And I've basically correlated because that's a 30-degree lens. So basically, if you're further away, it's still focusing those diodes. So you're still getting a good therapeutic dose. So it's something that I think is really important to touch on, and something to definitely bring up with these companies, asking them about the lens angle and asking them, and they should have this information, you know, what's not just the joules or the amount of milliwatts or power right up against this, but what if I'm standing 4 inches away? What if I'm 6? What if I'm 8? It's something important to know because that's directly correlated with the therapeutic benefits you'll get. And I also just want to touch on one important thing. While I believe getting this amount of near-infrared in your body can be therapeutic systemically because it's carried on the hemoglobin in the blood, I just want to reference all of the research that's been done with LEDs and lasers and point out that technically there hasn't really been any adequate studies done on the total systemic effects in the whole body with near-infrared LEDs or lasers. Generally, if you look at the studies, they're treating more localized areas. Like if we look at the NASA studies, one device that's built to that spec and used was the Quantum Warp 10. It's a localized device. This is really common to see with LEDs or lasers, localized types of treatments. And we know a lot about how that works. Here's another light. There's all kinds of devices out there. The Health Light, just a pad, an LED pad, putting out a good amount of therapeutic dose. You can use it locally for localized musculoskeletal issues, etc. But to do whole systemic treatments of the whole body, no studies have been done yet. But we do know enough about how near-infrared through LEDs work, how it is carried on the blood, and your body has a circulation system. So for sure, we've seen that the body will take that charged up blood and actually the cascade of therapeutic chemical effects that happen in the body do travel systemically. I just want to always go back to research. A lot of people talk to me because I'm very objective and unbiased. I try to just lay out everything as clearly as possible. And I try to, as much as possible, reference research if I can. But if anybody has any more questions about these types of devices, as well as these types of technologies or other devices like heat lamps, which are currently tried, you know, halogen heat lamps, and that are currently trying to be promoted as similar to these, which they're actually quite different. If anybody has questions about that, or what kind of saunas currently are offering this type of technology, just feel free to reach out to me on healthhacksreview.com, and you can also chat with me anytime. And if this video is helpful to you, you have quick questions, you can always ask them in the YouTube description below. Anyways, thanks for watching, and keep on doing that research. Thanks.